General MUSEVENI came out to talk about the Iran-US-Israel war, and he attributed it to failure of the two-state solution. By the way, that was a UN resolution where it came out to say that Israel and Palestine may exist separately as different nations. General MUSEVENI, when he came out to speak, he said this about Netanyahu.
To Netanyahu, who is a good friend of mine. He has come here many times. We're in this house here with him and the president of Sudan. General Burhan. We were here. We had a meeting here. I said, why don't you recognize Palestine? Why? The two-state solution. Because of course, for them they say, initially the Palestinians, the Arabs did not accept the two-state solution. It is true that in one of the conferences, Khartoum conference, the Arabs had said, no recognition, no what, that line. But since that time, they have accepted. You Israel, why don't you implement this? They can't. You don't know why. They say, oh, this one, they say this, but you can see they are very reluctant to accept the two-state solution. Then our friends, the Americans, the use of force in this area.
That is General MUSEVENI on Netanyahu. Remember, Netanyahu is the Prime Minister of Israel. And I think that is the problem. But the main problem is that the US wants to control the Middle East. In fact, US fears a united Middle East because it threatens power. They have energy, almost 70% of the energy, fuel, etc., comes from that region. And energy is a driver of economics. So when they impose war, they are able to control prices, to control everything, to control oil. That's the bigger reason. So the purpose of this video, I've come to talk about the comments which were made by General Kaguta Museveni, what it means for our politics, and most importantly, the statements we can learn from the politics of our nation. But before I do this, I want to let you know that if you're into this channel, please subscribe. And if you're watching this video from a different platform, please head on to YouTube, type in Sula Mawagali. There's a lot of content of this nature. If geopolitics and economics is what you want, this will be definitely the right channel for you to subscribe to. First of all, one of the General MUSEVENI's strength is trying to assert himself in international community. When it comes to the US needing a hand in Congo, he will go. In Central African Republic, he will go. In Somalia, he will go, because he has that background of being a soldier. But also, leading a country for 40 years, you become the biggest man in the region. Uganda is not the strongest country, but by virtue of being him in the leadership for 40 years, he has some influence. So when he came out to speak about Netanyahu, when he told him off that there should be a state solution, I think he was right. But also went ahead to say that he has ever hosted the Iranian leader and told him the same. In fact, he said these statements.
Just with the Iranians, with all of them, the leaders, Ahmadinejad, Raisi, the one who was here, all of them, Hashem Rafsanjani. I was saying, you people, the Iranians, why don't you recognize Israel? They said Israel does not belong here. It is not. It is a transplant in the Middle East. I said, no. Me, I know this part of the world from the Bible. You are all mentioned in the Bible. The Jews are mentioned. The Persians are mentioned. There's another group called Medians. the Philistines, Palestinians are mentioned. Goliath was a Palestinian. Why don't you? So I told them, you should accept Israel, so that we implement the two-state solution.
That is General Kaguta Museveni. And for me, I think it is right. The trigger of all this, the day we shall solve the issue of Palestine and Israel, is that day we shall have been, the world will have solved almost 80% of the Middle East crisis, because that is the problem. But also, the United States of America acts as a trigger, acts as a catalyst of all these wars in the Middle East, which is unfortunate. Okay, because they know. In fact, part of the reasons that's why countries fight is because of, one, Britain. The maps that were drawn by Britain didn't favor us. For example, in Kenya, some tribes were cut a half. If you go, Masai in Kenya, Masai in Tanzania, Masai in Uganda, the Samias, the Waluya in Kenya, etc. You may have your grandmother in Kenya, yet you live in Uganda. Look at Rwanda. The entire Chisoro, part of it was supposed to be in Rwanda, or vice versa. Look at Congo. The reason as to why Hutus continue fighting, because part of them have their grandfathers in Rwanda. So part of it is colonial. Now it's the same thing that's happening in the Middle East. America elevated Israel to subjugate the Palestinians. So the day that problem will be solved is that day 50% of the problems will be solved in the Middle East. Of course, that's my opinion. Mine is truly Mr. Makindi, Kabir Suleiman Magal. If you're into this channel, please subscribe, like, and comment so that I'm motivated to do more of such videos. I will see you on another one. Peace.